moving on to the next video in the series, and in this one we're going to be taking a look at focus and understanding how focus works. All right, let's talk about focus a little bit here. I want to explain some background, but man, talk about focus. What is going on with this picture? I can't even tell. There we go. All right, so focus. Yeah, very critical to your parameters, and having a good background and understanding of it is going to be helpful. So you should know that the zero focus point is right at the bottom of the nozzle. Okay, so right at the tip of the nozzle is considered to be zero. And above the nozzle is going to be positive. Okay, so always when we're cutting with oxygen, we're going to use a positive focus. And when you're cutting with oxygen, what happens is you have the focal point positive, which is up inside the nozzle. It connects with the oxygen gas itself and actually produces an arc. And you're actually, when you're cutting with oxygen, you're cutting basically with a flame or an arc. And the more positive you go with the number, so +1, +2, the further inside the head you're going, the higher up you're going. And the higher up the focus, the larger the kerf width is going to be created. So again, we're looking at the cut chart here that we've looked at in previous videos, and you see that we have the focus column here, and you can see this is 1500 watt, and we're looking at carbon steel. And the main thing, you know, for any given thickness, it's going to specify a focus, and you should know that that's just the starting point. I have seen machines, you know, let's say, you know, for example, it says for 5mm carbon steel, we need to be cutting with oxygen. We're going to be using 1500 watts. We need a focus of 2 to 3 millimeters, somewhere in that range. I just worked with a guy last week. We started with 2 to 3 millimeter, and the part would not even drop out. As it turned out, on his machine, it needed to be 1 millimeter. I've actually seen machines that when it says, you know, 2 to 3 millimeter for the focus positive, that you actually had to program in a negative number. And again, this comes back to the autofocus servo calibration, the overall just, you know, calibration of the machine, the head itself, all those variables come into it. So really that's just a target number. The actual number you program in could be significantly different than that. And that's why so many people struggle getting their machine dialed in. Is just keep in mind that as you're dialing in your focus, you want to start with these targets and you want to search high, keep going high up in the range, and then keep going low in the range, even if you have to go negative, and you're searching for, you know, where the good result is. And once your result starts to diminish in one way or the other, you know you've reached a limit on that end. All right, so now we're going to look at nitrogen cutting, and nitrogen cutting is going to always have anywhere from a 0 to 6, 7, 8, 10 millimeter negative focus. And the negative focus is actually outside of the nozzle. So it's below the nozzle. So it's putting the focal point, you know, down into the material versus up into the head. It uses a different process when you have a negative focus and you're cutting with nitrogen. You are essentially using the laser light to do the majority of the cutting, and the high pressure nitrogen or compressed air essentially just blows away the remainder of the material out of the kerf and creates the cut. That's why you see normally your max cutting thickness when cutting with nitrogen is going to be about half that, or even less than half that when you're cutting with oxygen, because when you're oxygen cutting, you're using an arc cutting with heat, and when you're nitrogen cutting, you're primarily using the laser light itself to do the majority of the cutting. Okay, so just a basic explanation of focus. And so just to summarize the takeaways here, nitrogen cutting uses a negative focus, oxygen cutting uses a positive focus. And I want to keep stressing this because the starting focus point that you're going to use off of the sheet that you're getting is just that. It's just the starting point. The actual focus that your machine will cut its best at is unknown. And that's the whole point of this video, is for you to understand that no one else's parameters are going to be the perfect parameter for your machine. And it's through trial and error, it's through the expertise that you're going to learn through this video series that you're going to find the ideal focus for your machine. And again, the starting points or the targets or the norms, whatever someone else's focus is, will not be your target focus or exact focus to get your machine dialed in.